Good afternoon. My name is Christy Wilson, and I am the Director of Operations for the Secretary of State's Office. I wanted to just kind of give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today, and then also want to introduce you to our team that really led this whole project. So we're going to kind of give a little bit of the history of what we've talked about, or what we've actually done in the Secretary of State's office in the past, how we came to being able to fund and see this project through, and then also what we're looking at for the future. So let me introduce you to Kim Gazelle. Many probably have talked to her on the phone, I'm sure, with questions over the years. And but it's nice sometimes to put a face with the name. And she's our subject matter expert. She did 99% of all the testing that went with this project, and really has a lot of great institutional knowledge. She's been with the Secretary of State's office for 20 years. So a really good asset for the office. And then our lead presenter today, Kim will answer questions with regards to like process as we get into some of those questions. And then our presenter today is Kyle Phillips, and he was the project lead, and really has a lot of development skills as well. So he's going to take over and show you fast track filing.
Thank you, Christy, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Fast track filing is something that we've talked about in the Secretary of State's office for a long time. I've been in the office for 17 years and had the privilege of developing most of the applications that we use in business services, and this is something that we really wanted to do years ago and just didn't have the resources to be able to do it. I kind of want to find out a little bit about what you guys in the audience, have you guys heard of fast track filing? And I guess there's a way in GoToMeeting to be able to raise your hand. So if for those of you who could electronically raise your hand, we've got one at least person in the room who's heard of it, which is no surprise. David Walker's heard of it. So looks like our online group, most of you, a few of you have heard of it. How about question number 2? How many of those who have heard of it have had the opportunity to use it, or someone in their office has used it? And it looks like we've got just one hand maybe raised online and one here in the office. So I'm going to assume you had a good experience with it. Doug's given a thumbs up. And I will tell you that the response we've had so far with fast track filing has been pretty phenomenal. The fast in fast track, as you'll see by the end of today, really is true. But I want to kind of start at the beginning and just talk about a little bit of the work we're doing in the Secretary of State's office. Online filings is nothing new to our office. We've been doing UCCs online since 2001. In fact, we were one of the first states in the nation to offer that. We've done the biennial reports online since 2002, notary renewal since 2003. We have other applications that we receive online for more than a decade, 2080 agreements, ag reports among those. But fast track filing, or excuse me, rather business entity filings present a special challenge because there's a high degree of human intervention. We have to look at the documents that are filed to make sure they meet the requirements of the law. And so it requires a very high degree of intervention, looking for things like name availability. Did you get the suffix right? Did your filing meet the registered agent requirements? If you're qualifying a foreign entity, does it meet all the requirements for that? So these are all the different things, and there's many, many more than that. Those are just a few examples. But the other filings that we put online, those are real-time filings. They don't require any human intervention. The filer enters his data, enters his information, and he's able to click save, and the document is on file with our office immediately. We were able to bring a form or a small degree of business filings online back in about 2012. You guys have probably used this system. This system is just provides you a way to tell us what file you're giving us, tell us how you're going to pay for it, tell us who you are, and then upload your document. Really though, this is just a mechanism for you, the filer, to get us your filing. What we do when we receive it through this system is we print it out. And so at that point, it becomes a paper filing. And it's subject to the same, delays that our office has experienced over a period of time on our paper filings. So as I said, it's still a paper process. So what is the paper process? In order for us to really get a grasp and an understanding of the benefit of fast track filing, I wanted to kind of quickly walk you through what is the paper process and how long does it, and why does it take so long to get your documents through our office? First step is, usually most of our documents come in through the mail. And so we get these large mail bins coming into our office twice a day. On Mondays, this bin is overflowing. Not as much mail in the afternoon. We get mail in the morning and in the afternoon. The afternoon mail run is not going to be this much, but on average, our mail bin is coming in like this, every day. And so we have a person who that's basically all her job is to open the mail and to sort the mail. And so once she gets the mail sorted into the various piles, and one of those piles is going to be business formation documents, new entities for LLCs and for-profit corporations. Then it goes to the person who's going to verify it. There's an example of what the piles of stacks look like. This one's taken on Friday, and these documents are waiting to be processed into our system. They've already been verified, and so this just gives you an idea of the kind of the volume that we're talking about. So the paper process, after we get the mail and sort it, we verify the document. So it goes to a person who looks at each and every document and makes a determination if it meets all the requirements of the law. If it does, I wanted to show you some examples of some of the verification process that we have to go through. And this is just, believe me, a very, very small example of what we have to do, and we're verifying the documents. In this first example, this is a filer who just filed with our office last week, trying to qualify a Missouri corporation in Iowa. On their document, they wrote on here that the date of incorporation in the state of Missouri was August 15th, 1956. Well, one of the other requirements when you're qualifying a foreign entity is you've got to send in a certificate of good standing from the home state. And so they did that, and there it is. But on the certificate of good standing, the date of incorporation is stated as July 5th, 1956, not August 15th as the document that was submitted to our office stated. And so for this reason, this document had to be rejected. Here's another example. This is a person who's trying to file an article of incorporation with the name Melissa Gomez Insurance, Inc. So that's the document as it was submitted with the name that they wanted, but there's already an entity with that name on our system. This particular entity happens to be one that was created in 2014 under the Chapter 489 and LLC, but that name is not available. Now you might notice I've got on the right-hand side that the status of this organization is inactive. So you might wonder, well, why isn't that name available if the entity isn't even active? The reason is because this particular LLC was administratively dissolved for failure to file their biennial report. And in this use case scenario, this name is actually protected for a period of 5 years. So this name is not available, and for that reason, this document was rejected. Here's one that's a filer trying to file an LLC in Iowa. Certificate of organization was submitted. Article 2, they're trying to state their registered agent. And they've got the address listed there, but then it says, and the name of the initial registered agent of that office is, and it's just a period. There's actually no registered agent listed there, and so for that reason, this document had to be rejected. So there's a lot of work and process that goes into the verification of these documents. We don't have forms, so we have to look at the document submitted and find and read each, quite carefully to make sure that all the requirements of the law are met. So after the documents are verified, for those that do pass and make it through, those are cashiered. So the check is cashed or the credit card is processed. And then next it goes into the stack where it will be data entered by an employee of our office. You saw the stacks of data entry that we had just last Friday that was waiting to be processed. Next, we scan the document. We have to have a record of the document in our database for the future before we can return the document to the filer. And then the next step would be to redact the document. We look at each and every page of every document that comes to our office, and we remove, redact anytime we see an email address or social security number. And then the final step is the mail outs. We mail back to the person their document along with their certificate of acknowledgement. I didn't put it in here, but there is a sort of a step in between redact and mail outs that we make sure that everything balances out so that we're not mailing out a document that we didn't scan and redact. So there is that sort of verification step in there as well. We didn't even talk about rejections. If a document is rejected, it goes down a different path where a letter is generated telling the filer why their filing was rejected, and it is returned to the filer through U.S. Postal. Now let's take a look at this process by the numbers. All those steps that I just outlined, we figure that takes about 15 minutes per document. And that's probably a conservative estimate, but we'd rather sort of err on the conservative side. So each and every one of those documents that go from beginning to end, about 15 minutes. And the last 12 months, we've processed and entered 23,000 new business filings in Iowa. That's 90 new businesses in Iowa every single day that are coming through our office. So if you do the math, 23,000 new business submissions, about 15 minutes per document, that adds up to about 5,750 hours of staff time that it takes just to process new business formations. And that doesn't even include the time spent on rejections. Let's talk about rejections for a moment. The rate of rejections for these documents is actually quite high. We figure we reject about 30% of the paper submissions that come into our office for various reasons. Some of the ones you saw earlier, but there are a whole litany of reasons. You know, they might have the registered agent has to be in Iowa, so they might mess that up. If it's an LLC, they might forget to list the organizer's title at the bottom of the document, or the document has to be captioned certificate of organization at the top, and there's just a whole litany of reasons why we might reject a document. Based on the calculation, or based on the known statistic of 23,000 new business formations, that means that if we're rejecting 30%, that's about 7,000 paper submissions that we're rejecting, every year. Paper processing. Many of you who've used our office know that we're about 2 to 3 weeks behind in processing, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but over the course of the first 6 months of this year, we've been about 2 to 3 weeks behind. Well, if you throw a rejection in there, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks before you can get your new business formation, potentially, before you can get your new business formation filed in our office. The rejection process is very slow too. It's not electronic at all. It's all paper-based. U.S. Postal letters, there's no email, there's no online system for you to check the status of your document. None of that is available in the current scenario. Just to give you an idea of some of the other filings that are happening in the Secretary of State's office, we're getting 250,000 filings just in the area of notary, UCC, biennial reports, and mechanics liens. Now, to be fair, UCC and biennial reports, about 95% of those are online already. Mechanics liens is even higher. About 98% of mechanics liens are filed online. Notary is not as high. It's about 35%, and that's because an original notary commission filed in our office has to be on paper. It's required by law that it's on paper, and so you can only do a notary renewal online, and about 60% of our notaries do that. There are also other business filings, not including new business formations, not including biennial reports. There's about 30,000 of those every year. Our office takes about 60,000 phone calls every year. We have about 12,000 people walking into our office every year, on average, walking up to our front counter and filing their documents just by walking into our office. So that brings us to fast track filing, and what is fast track filing and how does it change the scenario that I've just laid out. Well, fast track filing is a true online system. I mentioned earlier that our current business entity filing system is really just a nice way for you as the filer to deliver your document to us, but it's not really online. It's just paper behind the scenes. When you have an online system, you can do a lot better validation. You can make sure that mistakes like the person who forgot to list their registered agent, that's not going to happen in an online scenario, because the system is able to easily say, you know, you didn't put any value in for the registered agent, and so we can have a lot higher level of validation, which is going to reduce our rejections, and I'll show you some statistics on that in a little bit. Financial transactions, they're all online. No one in the Secretary of State's office has to deal with the cashiering. Data entry is all done by the filer. That's not passing through anything in the Secretary of State's office. There's no scanning. All the documents are created by the system itself. And what we do, and I'll show you an example of this later, is the data that you enter, we create a cover sheet, and it goes with the document that you would normally provide to us. Correspondence is all online. No more U.S. Postal Service. It's all email. Or even if you don't use your email, you can just log into the system, and there's an online dashboard that will give you all the status of all of your filings, and the ones that have been filed and the ones that are in process. Fast track filing still does require human review. We still have to look at the document. We still have to verify it, but it's a much, much faster process now. So now I'm just going to jump into fast track filing and just kind of give you a sample of what it looks like. So the URL for fast track filing is filings.sos.iowa.gov. You can also get there by just going to our website and clicking on the link. So I'll go ahead and get logged in here. So there's the dashboard that I mentioned earlier. At the top, you have your area where you have pending filings. So these would be filings that you maybe are in process. You're just working on it. You haven't actually submitted it to the office yet. These could be filings that you've submitted and you're waiting for the Secretary of State to respond. Or there could be filings here that you submitted and the Secretary of State has rejected for one reason or another. Below that is the approved filings section. So these are filings that they're already complete. And this will just be a history of all your filings. Didn't walk through the process of creating an account. Is pretty straightforward, but I did want to mention for those of you who haven't created your account yet and plan to create one, when you first create your account, before you can actually start using the system, you have to add a payment method. And a payment method can be, if your firm happens to have an accounts receivable account with the Secretary of State's office, that would be something that you pay $100 a year for, and it would be a 4-digit number with a PIN. You could enter that here, and that could be a possible payment type, or you could enter one or multiple credit cards to this system, and I'll show you later how that works with the system. But basically, you do have to set up your payment method before you can file. So we're going to go ahead and file a document. So we go to the File a Document page, and these are the documents that you can file in fast track filing at this point in time. So you can create an LLC with a certificate of organization. You can create a for-profit corporation in Iowa or a nonprofit corporation. And then you can qualify a foreign entity in any of those three areas, LLC, for-profit, or nonprofit. Those are the documents that are available now. And so for the purpose of this demonstration today, let's form an LLC. Now I want to say, and Kim thinks I'm crazy for doing this, but I didn't tell anybody in the office that I'm here doing this demo today, so we're going to see how fast they approve my filing. Let's see, save my password. No, thank you. So here's what the web page looks like. It's just, I picked LLC because it's sort of the simplest one, it has the fewest requirements, and it'll be fast for us to go through this. I'll show you briefly some of the other forms. We won't actually file any of those. First question here is chapter. This is just asking you to choose between just a normal code, chapter 489 LLC, or is it a professional LLC? For this demo, I'll just do a regular LLC. One of the Nice things about Fast Track is we have a name availability checker built right into the system. So you can put your name in and it will tell you if the name is available or not. So put in Hy-Vee, I'm going to click on check name and it's saying that name's not available. And it's even telling me that it doesn't have a valid suffix. So it's giving me 2 pieces of information here. So go ahead and add LLC onto the end of that. So now that goes away, but it is still telling me that that name is not available. We'll go ahead and put a name in here and we'll see if that name is available. So now we get the green check mark, the name is available. Next field is the effective date. We'll just put today's date for that, and it asks for a time as well. Expiration date for this entity, I'm just going to say this is a perpetual entity, there is no expiration. Now this next item is upload PDF. And I forgot to plug in my, I don't suppose you have any PDFs on this computer. There's PDFs on here I could grab. I brought one with me if I could. So I did bring one with me, and if I can find a USB port on here. So basically what this is asking you to do is this is just asking you to upload the document that you would normally have presented to us. So this would be your certificate of organization that you drafted in your office. And so we'll click on Browse, and we'll go ahead and find that PDF. And there it is. Now the registered agent section is here. We've, if you're an individual registered agent, you would just type in your name and address here. If you happen to be an entity, the law requires that you get the name right if you're an entity in Iowa. And so we've provided a search mechanism here that will call up registered agents that are already in our system. And again, this is a way for us to help you, the filer, make sure you get the name right, because we would reject a filing if the registered agent name is an entity that is not formed in Iowa. So we'll just select that one. It'll fill in that information for us. Principal office is the next area. And this is actually optional. It will be required later for this entity when they file their biennial report, but at least at this point, it's optional. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to skip it. And then the last requirement for an LLC is just the signature. So we'll go ahead and type our name in there and check the box that says we are who we say we are. Now, if we wanted to, we could click Save Work, and we could go back and work on this later. Maybe we don't have our drafted document, maybe isn't ready, or maybe there's some information we don't quite know yet, so we can save the work and go back and finish it later, or we can just go ahead and review and pay. So here we have our document. This is just a review screen. We can look at it one more time to say, yep, that all looks right. And then we select our method of payment. If we had multiple credit cards on here, we would actually have to select the one that we want. For those of you who have Secretary of State accounts, you can put an account reference in here that will show up on your monthly statement. And then we click Submit to File. So now on the dashboard, we have the Bar Demo LLC has been submitted, and we'll see how fast the Secretary of State's office is able to do that. Just a few other notes about the system. For those documents that are already filed, you'll be able to, once they're approved, you'll be able to they'll be in this section of your dashboard, and you'll be able to click on these and see the documents that they were filed. This is opening this particular document, and it'll open it up here. Maybe. There it is. So this is a document that I had previously filed, and it shows the document, that it was filed on this day at this time, and there's the certificate number. We could actually, go to our website and search for this document and see the same thing through our normal corporation search. You can also get a copy of the certificate of acknowledgement that we in the past, we've mailed this back to you, but now you can get this online. And then lastly, you can get a copy of your receipt for your document. and there's where that is. Now, just briefly, under File a Document, I'll just briefly kind of run through a couple of these others. So if we are going to do an Articles of Incorporation, there's a few more requirements for that one. And so, it's some of the same stuff. You're selecting a chapter, you're putting your name, effective date, you're doing your upload, your PDF. Stock is a requirement for Articles of Incorporation that we don't have for LLCs. We also have incorporators and officers that we have to add. Principal office, again, is optional, and then the signature. So these are all the things that are the required elements. And again, the PDF here is an option for you to upload your drafted document. And then the last one I'll show this morning is just a certificate of authority for a foreign corporation qualifying in Iowa, and these are the requirements for that. One of the things that is different here is for the upload, you're not uploading the drafted document because there is no drafted document. What you are uploading is a certificate of good standing from the home state that the entity was formed in. And then we have here the principal address, principal office address, registered agent, officer, signature, some of the same things that you saw in the other filings. I think that pretty much gives you an idea of how the system works. The one thing that I didn't show you today, it looks like they did approve my filing. So we didn't have to wait 2 to 4 weeks. We've got this on file right now, and so we're good to go. I got to remember to take that off the system when I get back to the office. There is a way for firms who have multiple filers in your office. We can group you all together. And the nice thing about that is you'll be able to see each other's filings. If somebody happens to leave the office, or even if they're just at lunch or on vacation, other folks in your office will be able to get access to their filings, especially if they're in process or something like that, and they need to go back to it, or it's maybe rejected and it needs to be fixed. You'll have access to do that. If your firm is interested in grouping all the filers in your firm together so that you can see each other's filings, just contact our office, and we'll have to set that up from our end, but we're happy to do that. One last thing, I did mention before that this is all email based, so we did get an email back saying that our document that we entered had been approved. And if it had been rejected, we would have got that information back as well. Just real briefly, what things look like from our staff on our internal application. When we go into review, we just see the document just as we saw on the dashboard, except we have just these big accept and reject buttons where we can accept or reject the document. If we did happen to reject it, our staff is just able to click a checkbox or possibly multiple checkbox indicating why the document was rejected. And by checking the checkbox, it will automatically add text to an email that once the file is actually rejected, the email will be sent back to the filer. So let's compare FTF to the paper process. We went through that before, and you're going to see now the significant differences in how, as our business services director likes to say, it's a real game changer for our staff. So the processing time for fast track filing goes from 15 minutes to 1 minute. Really all we need to do, we still have to look at these things to redact them, but we'll always have that. So really all we need to do is verify the document. And that, if it's an LLC, which most of these filings are, it doesn't take long to do that. And so our processing time goes from about 15 minutes to 1 minute. And the rejection rate is greatly reduced. Instead of rejecting 30% of these, in our first month of operation, we're only rejecting about 5 or 6% of the fast track filing submissions. Let's take a look at processing time, fast track versus paper. So we mentioned earlier we had 23,000 new business filings in Iowa in the last 12 months. And we said that it took 5,750 hours of staff time to process all those filings. With fast track filing, it was 1 minute per document. If we were able to get all 23,000 of those online, it would be 384 hours. Big, big, big difference. Big for us, and it's big for you because you guys don't have to wait 2 to 3 weeks for your filings, 4 to 6 if there's a rejection. You're getting your filings processed, almost immediately. So that, as I said, that's 1 minute per document. Now, obviously, we're not expecting to have 100% of these filings coming in online. We don't know what our realistic goal is. Will it be 80%? Will it be 90%? UCC is 95%. Will it be that high? We're anxious to see what it is. The higher it is, the better for you and for us. I can tell you this, last week was our first week live with this system being public. We've actually been live since May 15th, but it was sort of a pilot project until last week. And so last week we went public, and we were getting 69 filings per day through fast track filing. So if we go back and look at, we're getting 90 new filings a day, 69 of them were coming through fast track filing in our first week of operation. So that's already at 75%. So we're really excited about that. Now, what about rejections? We mentioned earlier 30% rejection rate for paper documents, 5 or 6% for fast track filing documents. We know that paper rejection might be 4 to 6 weeks to complete a filing. I took a look at the statistics for fast track filing, and I think it was, at the time I looked, there was maybe 13 or 14 that had been rejected. And I looked at the time from when they were initially submitted to when they were filed in our office. For the average of those 13 filings was about 50 minutes. So even with a rejection, we're still getting, it's still getting done in 50 minutes. Fast track filing versus paper. Most submissions that are put through fast track filing are submitted and on file in our office in less than 15 minutes. And honestly, as you saw with the filing we did here, it was more like about 5 or 6 minutes. And so that's obviously a great thing for you guys. You guys can get your things done very quickly. But that's during business hours. What about FTF submissions after hours? Obviously the website's available 24/7. So anything that's submitted that's not during business hours will be approved at the next time that we're open for business. Worst case scenario, for FTF submission at 5 o'clock on Friday won't be approved until Monday morning, Tuesday morning if there's a holiday. But even that is pretty fast turnaround time. We've already received in our first month of operation 800 fast track filing submissions, and that represents almost 200 hours of staff time that we've saved in our office. It's helping us catch up on our paper processing. When fast track filing went live May 15th, we're almost 4 weeks behind in paper processing, and we're already whittled that down to about 2 weeks. And so that's going to continue to change. We'll be able to eventually reassign some of our staff that's been doing some of the data entry and data processing to other roles in our office, like customer service, answering the phone calls, handling the walk-ins that are coming to our office, and helping those processes move along more quickly. Fast track filing is going to continue to grow. We want to continue to make a lot of other filing types available through fast track filing. There's other, we get a lot of registered agent change forms in our office, and for me, I think that would be a great next step. Adoption of fictitious names is another common filing that people file in our office, and right now those 2 filings are still paper only, or the what I call the legacy system or the glorified fax, but it's paper behind the scenes. So it's our goal to get some of these additional filings added to the fast track filing system. That's our intention. Hopefully even before the end of this year we'll have some new things added to fast track filing. So with that, I'm done talking, and Kim is all ready to answer her questions, except her microphone's all the way up here. So I'll just open it up at this point to questions that you guys have. So as Christy mentioned earlier, Kim she's been in the office for 20 years, most of that time in business services, and she really is a subject matter expert. And, you know, fast track filing wasn't fast track filing until Kim said it was fast track filing. So she's really a knowledgeable person. Even if any of you have questions about anything, you know, after today, Kim is a great resource for you, especially if it's in the area of requirements of filings and things of that nature. Technical questions would be more my area. Looks like we have a question. So the question is, to clarify, the PD organization is still the same as what we currently need to upload.
That is correct.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
In the past couple of years, we've been talking about forms and transmittal documents or cover sheets. What does that mean to you and Kim? And would those need to be developed for all the documents that, for example, chapters 489 and 490 authorize to be filed?
Can you summarize the question?
So the question was in regard to discussions that our office has had regarding transmittal forms, especially for, I think, the certificate of organization, articles of incorporation, things of that nature. Is that?
Other unauthorized documents.
Yeah.
Required filings.
Yeah, required filings and what those transmittal documents might look like in the future. Is that
right?
Correctly summarized? I'm going to call up, although it may not, it's not going to be available yet. So actually go to give you an idea of so the filing that we just did, I'm going to see if I can call that up again. If I understand your question, I don't know how well you can see that. So this is the one that we just did, and this is what we call it a cover sheet. You might think of it as a transmittal form. This has a summary of all the data that was entered by me, and then so it has all that. So this basically is a summary of the required information, and then the document that we uploaded is attached. If I can get, there it goes. And this is just, oh, interesting, it's Walker Safety LLC. Complete, I didn't even look at this document, I just grabbed it. So this is the document that was actually uploaded, and so they're combined together through fast track filing. I don't know that that any of this would change the paper process. I think I would see that as staying probably the same as it always has been. You have anything you want to add to that, Kim?
Nope, not at this time. I think that's exactly what we are looking at right now.
Okay. There we go. So online filings will be returned during business hours only and not weekend or holidays. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. You can submit your filing, but because we still have to look at it and verify it, we only can do that during business hours. Will it be necessary or beneficial for the legislature to amend any statutes in order to facilitate either Fast Track or Fast Track 2.0? That's a good question. I think that at this point in time, I don't know of any legislation that is pending or being considered that would be in direct relationship to fast track filing.
So you didn't have to come up with an order or anything to require it? It's not mandated. Okay. Okay.
I think it remains to be seen, depending on, sorry.
I would say that that remains to be seen. It depends how far we want to take it. There's other models out there, like in Colorado, they're 100% online. So if something came to something like that, or if all of a sudden we decided, you know, collectively that that's what we wanted to do, we wanted to push towards that model, then yes, definitely something would have to change with regards to legislation. So it's not what we're looking at right now. We want to make sure that we have adoption. We want to make sure that it's a slow process. We want to make sure that people are satisfied with it. And we do, we're very, very interested in feedback. I sent an email out for people that actually filed recently and just, you know, asked, hey, is there anything you suggest, anything that you loved about it? Let us know. And we got some really good suggestions. So we'll put those in our enhancement list. We have to, of course, you know, be good stewards of the money that we've been given by the legislature and make sure that it's something that we can do. So, yeah, I mean, to answer the question again, yeah, it just remains to be seen. So.
Yes.
So one more question. So you're sending your certificates out electronically. So did you have to go through any special accommodations to be able to represent your seal electronically and send it out? You have to repeat the question.
So the question was there's an electronic version of the certificate of acknowledgement that you can download through fast track filing, and do we have to go through any special accommodations to send that out, which is a little bit different form than the sealed paper that we would normally have sent out? And the answer is no, we did not make any special accommodations. Are there any additional questions? Am I missing one?
Square box on the docket for you, so
Say again?
on the question tab, there's a little square box. If you click on that,
Okay.
it's a little easier that way.
When can we start using fast track filing? Right now. You can use it right now. We went live with the system last Monday, so you can go ahead and create your account and start using it right away. Yes.
How are you preparing, or who prepared the cover sheets or transmittal documents that you are presently using, and what are your plans for developing those in the future?
We developed those, just within our office. Kim and I were the primary developers of that, with assistance from our legal counsel. And I don't think there would be any significant change to those forms. I don't really want to call them forms, but cover sheets as we add documents to the system. Well, actually, that's not true. So there are some, like change of registered agent, that is a form today. So I think that in the future, there wouldn't really be a cover sheet for that because it already is a form. It would just exist as it is today. Yes, Doug.
An example of a difference that might come in, you were dealing with corporations and you wanted to have a professional corporation. There'd be an additional question or two, I'm sure, that you have to have on your,
yes,
on your cover sheet.
Yes. Yeah, so there was, the question was related to one thing that would be different in the example that we had earlier. when we file the document, we had the option of choosing a professional organization. And so had we done that, when you do a professional organization, there are a few more questions you have to answer, and we actually have those. We can show that in this example where we have to list the purpose. And here's another great example of system validation is we're providing you with a list that makes it easier for you to provide a correct purpose for your professional LLC. And so this would make the cover sheet, specific to this filing. Yes, David.
One of the this ongoing discussion that the Secretary of State's office has had with the business law section of the bar, and from the forms that you're displaying, which are easily completed and conveniently made available, to be sure, the concern of the bar members has been an explicit recognition that the transmittal sheet not be seen as superior to or to displace the conceivably and frequently more substantial document that an attorney would upload, whether it's articles or other documents that either the Business Corporation Act or the LLC Act authorized to be filed. So I'm gathering you would not have any recognition in recognizing once the transmittal document requirements are demonstrated, which is going through the code requirements, that the key document for purposes of the internal affairs of the entity is the uploaded document that the attorneys upload.
I'll repeat the question in a moment, but just to make sure I understand it, you're asking which one would take precedence?
Right.
Okay. So the question is in relation to the data that is entered, which becomes the cover sheet, versus the data that is uploaded, which is the drafted document, and which one would take precedence. And we're not reviewing the uploaded document, so the cover sheet is the one that takes precedence.
For purposes of your filing, but for purposes of the internal affairs of the entity, the relations between it among members or shareholders or whoever, it's been important, it is important to the business law section that uploaded document be seen as the superior document. Mm-hmm. The requirements you have to see in order to file a document. In the past, we've offered to work with the Secretary of State's office to review the transmittal sheet, which I think would only include the minimal requirements in statute.
Yeah.
Whereas lawyers in drafting documents frequently go beyond the minimal amount of the document. Yeah. Of the code.
Yeah, and I know some of those discussions took place outside of my presence, and so I'm not sure if I can address your question today, but we'd happy to get back to you on that.
It's been about a 2-year discussion.
What's that?
It's been about a 2-year discussion.
Yeah, I remember when that started. I think Kim even made up the forms, the paper forms. Okay. Any consideration of adding limited partnership documents to fast track filing? Kim?
Yes, eventually we would like to add everything that we possibly can to fast track filing.
Yeah, and so everything with an asterisk next to that, because mergers would be a tough one to do. And so we would probably save that for last, and hopefully I'll be retired by then. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate your time today. I did want to just give a shout out to our partner in this, in developing the fast track filing website. We managed this project internally, and I wrote some of the code for our internal system, but the the site that you saw today was developed in cooperation with QCI, which is a consulting firm in West Des Moines. And then lastly, just here's all our contact information for Christy, myself, and Kim. So thank you.